Hey everybody, my name is Sherry Wind, and I am going to be your instructor for Abnormal Psychology this summer 2020 semester. Welcome, I'm glad you're here. Most students take this course because they're interested in human behavior. But how do we know, or how do we understand what normal is versus abnormal? And as the banner on our home screen says, is to understand what is abnormal, don't you first need to understand how we define normal? So this course is going to start off with one of our first discussions being, how do you differentiate what is abnormal behavior? Because isn't that part of this course, right? Isn't that part of understanding psychology? I always like to inform students that they're going to spend probably the next 10 weeks, speaking to you, diagnosing yourselves with a variety of mental health disorders. I'm going to ask you to be aware of that, be kind to yourselves, and just know that most likely you don't have most of these disorders. We all have, a little anxiety, and sometimes we might feel depressed. And sometimes we might have some, obsessive compulsive behaviors. We're going to understand what differentiates those sort of normal behaviors to when those become more abnormal behaviors. The last thing I want to also share with you is our course mission statement. I'm just going to read it to you because it's really important. I'd like you to reference this at some other point as well. This class is intended to increase awareness of mental health in order to change the stigma surrounding mental illness. And we're going to do that through compassionate acceptance and recognition of the differences among us. By utilizing different perspectives and considering the role of nurture versus nature, we will learn how to assess, diagnose, and treat mental illness in a more accurate and definitely positive light. So although this course covers all the different categories of disorders, we're going to talk about depression, we're going to talk about bipolar disorder, we're going to talk about the various different anxiety disorders. We're going to talk about phobias. We'll talk about personality disorders and schizophrenia. We'll talk about disorders of childhood like autism. We'll talk about eating disorders. We'll talk about disorders of older age like dementia and Alzheimer's. We'll talk about disorders of sex and gender. So we'll talk about all those different categories. But the bottom line is when you leave this course, I hope it's changed the way you observe or think about other human behavior, think about abnormal psychology, and ultimately all of us together can help reduce the stigma associated with mental illness. I always think when somebody tells you they broke their arm, it's like, oh, can I sign it? Oh, great, right? But when somebody tells you they have depression, the room gets quiet and people don't know how to react. Let's try to change that. Let's try to be able to talk more accurately about mental health and hopefully develop an acceptance of it in all of our lives. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you guys soon.